We'll find out. Betty, let's find out. Okay. All right. It is unable to detect a camera. Does anyone know anything about that? Instructional video.
Recording in progress.
Auto. Let's try. Still says unable to detect. Did you try pressing this one? Will it go to? I think we can probably still have a meeting without video.
Yeah.
Because it's recording.
Is it?
And I will be able to see participants
And any comments? Yeah.
and any comments. So I think
We
this
can-
may be good enough.
Yeah.
I'll watch the instructions video before I come. Did you go to try pressing other? Okay, yeah, let's just do it audio.
This is some new information.
I'm okay with this, Terry. Let's just live to fight another day. Thank you though very much for the help.
How are we doing? Good.
We are, we have audio, not video. I think we could have the meeting with audio. I can still respond to the public and see people coming on, but no idea how to the camera stream.
Thank you.
It's telling me that it's not able to detect the camera, so it may be that there's something not set up.
That's weird.
Agreed. Not in a user-friendly way. I would have to probably watch the instructional video at this stage, which I don't think we have to. Terry went through it and didn't see. But I think as long as we're recording all of this audio, everything I'm saying, to decide whether or not we're going to hold out for the video or not. I'm inclined not to hold out for the video. They can, they're absolutely able to hear us and get in. They just can't see us. But I think that's okay. Okay. I'm going to call us to order. Do we record the time? Is that a thing that we do at 7:36? And I'm going to say that Bev is here, and Betsy and Terry and Gary and Nona and myself. I'll apologize for the errors on the agenda. I tried to correct some of the things that have not been updated, like we don't meet as needed and we are not the acquisition committee, and those corrections were corrected. So I'm going to continue to work on getting those details right in the future. We only have one agenda item. And before that, I'm going to open up the meeting to oral communications. Hi.
My name is Linda Brothers. I live in Rhode I came to see you guys in action, but also a couple of things that I found disturbing. So maybe this is a little bit about what you're talking about. I don't really understand the George Foreman's open space versus. And I don't understand the conversation that you have or share with the committee. With me for that. But I think we have a huge deficit of parks in this town, to some extent, like open space. And then the other thing that I brought here tonight was this challenge. Transformation of this inclusionary fund into some sort of HCD, how did we develop agency trust fund? I didn't have time to go back and look at that. Presumably those are town general fund dollars that somehow really got put into this particular category, which on the face of it to me is just incomprehensible. Why would you suddenly put our town money that we control into a fund that you now have to be consistent with the rules and regulations of the HCD? My personal opinion is HCD is one of the part of the spot around the state agencies. I never know when I've been right for 50 years without with a lot of state agencies, and to have to then spend the money in that fund into a category that's subject to their rules means we lose all control of that money. It seems to me unnice, but I don't understand that. So those are just the 2 points that really caught my attention, and I'm really glad you're looking at all of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda, very much. Betsy.
I wanted to recognize and just one small factual correction. It wouldn't be general funds that were going into. Don't know. It's motion and up right now that is to rename the housing, inclusionary housing fund, which is only on May 11th. Inclusionary fund with a way of confusion. Trust fund. Inclusionary group funds. To HCD regulation.
Wrong to call it general,
I just want to make sure that.
but it was done. Is that right?
They
So my point would be, my point about control would be this.
yes.
Sure, yeah. Let's. I do think some of what you're interested in is going to get teased out in this conversation, and we can certainly follow up with things that aren't. Let me apologize to people who are on Zoom. I am new to this gig and cannot get the video to work, but I can hear you and I can see you, so you can let me know if you want me to unmute you. Are we able now to move on?
It's so good.
Okay, great. I'm gonna introduce what I think we're doing today, and then I'm gonna ask Betsy to say a few things because Betsy has fresh information than I do before we move to discussing the proposal. Partly in response to you, Linda, we have been invited by a town council subcommittee as the open space committee to make a recommendation as that subcommittee considers the use of what we have historically called inclusionary and in lieu housing funds. Very recently, my understanding is we've been invited also to start calling the Affordable Housing Trust Fund as a way of being clear about what we're talking about. As far as I know, that's only a change in how we're talking about it so far, but it seems to signal that there are alignments maybe with state policies being considered. But as far as I know, it's just in-house. We're now referring to it as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and has in the past been the in lieu fund and the inclusionary fund. So that's, I think, that does that seem right to you, Betsy? That's what the email said. Yeah, well, it certainly means what it means. And so our role today is to decide as the open space committee what our recommendation is to this subcommittee, which is Mary and Judith. And then they will take a lot of committees input to the town council, possibly through more iterations than just this set of iterations. That's you're making a face. Is that not your understanding?
Sorry, rephrase the question.
I don't think this is this is not a one and done part of the conversation. They're gathering information from committees and it's going to be considered by that subcommittee. And so this is not like a final anything, nor do we have any jurisdiction here, except it's very important for us to represent the point of view of the open space committee. I think so that's where I think that we are. Betsy and I have looked at some of the other recommendations that have been made by other town committees, and we can sort of tell you about that. If you're curious, we came up with this after careful consideration of what maybe our most meaningful perspective was for the subcommittee. It sounds like the housing element was finally published this afternoon. And so the work that Betsy and I did was without that final. And Betsy has had time to review the final published housing element. And so that feels like a bit of a wrench thrown into this conversation, but hopefully we can cope. Betsy, so can you highlight for us what you think changes our perspective on the recommendation that you saw today?
Yeah, I can speak to two things. I'd like to circle back the appropriate time to talk about the remaining and
Sure.
point to available minimum final submission to the state. One, part is a contender for the housing trust fund. That's one point. Second point that is now will become part of the payment land use classification. And what I did not make copies of was the program implementation matrix. It's a lot of thinking, but for one piece of information, on adoption, program one that will take see and be someone zoning. I think that's quite relevant because when zoning is not going back. So to me, the question, the meaningfulness of the zoning as it pertains to relocating 50 units to another parcel should be so So this is not to your attention.
So the worry is that the immediate rezoning preempts the kind of options we're hoping to have.
And immediate rezoning will take years.
Got it.
Here this is black and white, and I'm hoping to show you options. So that's the program 1-180 policy. And then from the other process, and the good news about the three. And on the page, it talks about the time frame and particularly on the flight attention. Proposal will be on January 2026. So we have to enable, this is where the review of is. We have planning between now and May of 2025. So we have soon as that planning process is over. But we can avail of us and considerable. So then we shall. We have any questions that we take on this now? Most of them belong together, as we do based in our communications.
Sure. So I'm not seeing which of those, what on here affects what we're talking about today. Except knowing it.
And looking at the program implementation and seeing that upon adoption, we adopted the possibility. There will be an amendment to the land use element and zoning. That has that meaning. And I want to make sure that it's timeline. And they quite. If the part of that is, you can't dance.
And when you spoke to Judith, she said, and when you spoke to Judith, what did she say?
Of course, it's not after you did nice.
Okay.
I'm not clear when you can find. Right.
Since we don't have enough information about this to act on it, right? Or any authority to act on it. I will promise to say that if we need to act on this, we will.
And then you can incorporate that information into our writing.
Okay, forgive me, I have no idea what we're going to say about the Affordable Housing Trust Fund that implicates us. You want to say that we recommend.
I'm still on the implementation timeline and
I understand. Yeah.
So sorry.
What do you want us to do?
Oh, I thought you were asking me to give you an overview of what happened there, what bearing on what we wrote.
Sure. And so far, I haven't understood what bearing it has on what we're going to write up for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Digesting this together. I think there's going to be rezoning from just because I'm thinking that once you upzone something, you can not go back in thousand. It's a done deal.
So you're hoping we'll build into this.
Or is rezoned. And under this options. That's why they have bearings on our patients because it's housing would become more good. That was fine.
So what we would do is we would say in what we prepare that we absolutely oppose immediate rezoning. I wasn't challenging you, Betsy. I was trying to figure out what concretely we would talk about. Okay, wonderful. So you wanted to respond to that? I think let's add to the conversation that we're going to have together, hopefully very soon, the possibility of suggesting as a committee that that the town not immediately rezone, since all of ours are relying on the idea of a sunset, like a sunrise and a sunset, during which we would consider alternatives. So if this new language means there will be no period of considering alternatives, we would strongly resist that as a committee. Is that correct? That's what I was trying to say. I don't think we have good information, but we can talk about it. We can talk about it. I'm not making a pronouncement. I'm trying to figure out what Betsy's asking for. Gary? Okay.
This is the schedule. Would be rezoning process. And analysis about what can actually be done.
I think we all think that. Yes. Right. That's what we think.
That's one thing. For
That makes so much sense to me.
Already, or
There's a post-adoption plan that describes that, and I think Betsy's concerned that this language preempts the post-adoption plan.
Well, no, I think it's all going in together.
Can everybody speak into the microphone, because when you turn your head, we can't.
Also, I'm going to ask that since you don't have video, for everyone to state your name before you speak.
It's a good idea.
Since Betsy speaking,
That's really good. Doesn't matter. So there's lack of clarity, and sometimes within a document that's this big and this complex, there's tensions pulling in two different directions. And I think that's what I want to summarize. Of course, this 18 months of planning, which I assume included, we would not rezone until the end of 18 months. And so this confused me, and I'm calling it out as a point of question and need for clarity before we deploy our energies and resources.
Great. So while we mull that over, there was something else about the renaming that you wanted to say.
Yes, Linda Brothers comments. I just want to call to attention about the crossing plan, which has been known as the inclusionary housing plan. Sometimes. First, to be an argument with specifically as very terribly to it. Did look up and then a couple of moments. $1 million doesn't go very far in this environment. So then we can see it seems to be unlikely that we would follow that unfortunately program in the communities like yes. Restrictions. Would be able to Really long, units. A year ago, they started to enter the regional conversation. This is effectively a welcome field. That Harvard Research has to do.
Great. I have a question. Should, there are at least two things that seem like they should be agendized on our next meeting, right? One is how we feel about joining the state housing funding right through this, which is maybe being considered. And one of them is the immediate zoning. Is that right?
I think that in the conversation with Judith, she thought that it would be worthwhile, our lady.
She did say that. Okay.
We can do the best that we can. And bounce that on things.
Okay.
Remember, we have
Great. So I feel like what you've added usefully to the conversation about the documents that we're going to consider is a concern about the renaming of the fund itself, a concern about future plan to align with the state through that renaming, and also those are the three things we might fold into the work we do now. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I would love to, with those three things added to the hopper, this proposal. Anyway,
We can hear the chair because you're 2 inches away, but everyone else get about 2 inches away. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
You come up front and zoom in.
Beth, I would love to hear what you think.
The. Why can't I still be in generic? Fund. Why did we change it? It was something that's more confusing. Finding possibly more restricted. That's what that trouble fund.
I have to say about that. Betsy and I don't have this information. We received an email that invited us to start referring to it this way from the town subcommittee. So I can't tell you why. We can decide we're not going to use that language as a committee if we don't want to. We can keep calling it the inclusionary fund if we want to in our document. We don't. This isn't something that we have done. This is something that has been suggested, and I don't know that any of us know yet what it means totally, but we're speculating with reason. Betsy,
We could just question it.
we could question it. We could absolutely question it. Or say that or use inclusionary fund in our document, and as we pass it along, as I pass it along to the subcommittee, say, hey, we're continuing to use inclusionary fund because we question this renaming.
And that's how we kind of got the money. I mean, from Blue Oaks and,
Yes.
right?
We got the money from Blue Oaks and from a reason of subdivision. Both of them were large subdivisions. And it was helping that showed the cost of settlement. And choosing meeting recently on the inclusionary housing fund.
So is there consensus among us that we will not adopt the new nomenclature and signal that we're concerned by it? Is there consensus?
Until it's in the word, perspective of oh, what it really means.
Great.
Our budget does not have to necessarily align itself.
I just like to try, and this is now, and I'm just concerned that we were discussing something that wasn't the agenda to begin with. So I mean, you know, we're discussing a document that was considered as an agenda. We don't know that everybody is the same, because they can go from that. So it almost seems to me that this is going to prepare for the future, maybe.
Sure, I apologize. I accepted the subcommittee's renaming without realizing that I should make that part of the package. So I'm sorry about that.
If not sure interpreted this noise since we were talking about the response and all that. And it chooses feedback on this. And so to me, it probably does fit in the agenda. You're saying that because everyone doesn't, so I think are sharing verbally this information. It's not as good as it would have been better than what we got in the written material and stakeholder material.
I think that, let me give the context. So there's been a lot of emailing back and forth from the subcommittee. And so if the lesson of that is you guys need to see all the correspondence before we talk, that's fine. I will say that, that there was not an explanation offered for it. And so there's been a lot of like, ask your committee, see how they feel about, there's like there may be 25 things that we've been invited to ask the committee about. And part of this document being brief and to the point was trying to sort of hone in on what felt relevant to us. And so I apologize if I missed that in the sieve, but I can say that there was nothing in the email that explained it. But I think having not given you that information, we can continue to use the name that we understand. And that can be our feedback on the name change, that we don't understand it. Right? If Judith wanted information about how we feel about the name change, she's going to get it.
Yeah. I also want to say that to another point about the board meetings, that I think it's quite unfortunate that we were asked to pay in on something specifically we housing element and we posted by having it wasn't in June 9th. Them taking it entirely responsible for your money. So I did what best I could to bring some material here so that I could do so. It's not often. I feel it's similar. Maybe. So much new information is becoming available. With our line. I will be less comfortable with the days than what we can write a week. So I think it's unfortunate that we're asked to do this work at this particular time. If we don't. Then we can. This is definitely.
What time did you get the information?
Which piece of it
Today. Today's information.
There was no information today, as I mentioned, Christie, the housing. Element, the final, became
Yeah, this is known and you know, what would really make sense for me is to have committees that are under and suddenly come and present to this community what things that we can have on. And we want everyone in town, everybody's fine.
Sure. Other committees have already weighed in and given their information to that subcommittee. We do not have to. We could decide as a committee we don't want to now. I have no, I would love to know what the committee thinks about that.
and we advocate to be able to make because the court before.
our understanding is that the input they get is going to get compiled. Which I think is happening over the next X number of days. That's why I dragged you here tonight, even though we just met. And so there's time pressure on it in order to be included in that. I also think it's fine to resist that time pressure as a committee if we don't feel like we have the right information. So what do you think, folks?
Well, actually, we don't have to get.
Lovely. Let's talk about the proposal. Yes, Gary, thank you for pointing that out. So assuming we're going to give them this proposal, are there things we would like to change besides the name, which we will change? I guess once we've decided what we think about this proposal, we'll decide together whether we want to submit it now. Okay.
And those is big. Very time. You need it. All those three things.
Would like to, thank you, Gary, for starting this world meeting. You like this. As written, please, I think that we need to add things. Or else. Lengthy, and I think it was ended. It's possible to reduce it. Here, really,
What are you referring to? I'm sorry, is it?
you get down.
So are you specifically suggesting language that we could change? Do you have language to change right now?
I'm so sorry to say that. I really want to, but I didn't get around to writing.
Oh, Betsy, certainly nobody thinks you need to have done more. I'm actually just trying to move through, at this point, I'm trying to move through a meeting. So, yeah.
Tonight or else, as a committee, we put a line chart us to, you know, we got to steer it down, but we decide it.
Sure. So I honestly didn't understand what you just said you wanted to change. Is it in the first paragraph?
Okay, so I'm on your page.
Oh, I think we were only talking about submitting the first page.
Oh, that's.
I think, we could only submit the first page at this point, and then farther on down the road, we might have more to suggest to the subcommittee.
Okay, so the disadvantage would only submitting the first page, and we will specifically not be able to address. Response.
Correct, but we might not have the best information for that as well. So if we don't treat this as a one-time thing, maybe we can. I see. So Betsy, what are the things that Judith asked for suggestions on? Let me tell you what we're talking about. The finance committee suggested we should do spend the money sooner rather than later. So we are sooner rather than later. From their own perspective, that makes sense. And so one of the things we're addressing in the sort of list of questions is sooner or later, we're saying we should wait until we have a rescue plan for Dolby Fourth Park, right? Other considerations that are not weighed in on in this one-page document. Very lowest housing category, or just low income housing, or even just moderate income housing. When I drafted this, thought that's not what we're most worried about. So Betsy, my response kind of is, we're not responding to 15 of their questions, because 15 of their questions come after we say you can't do anything with this money until we think, in our perspective, until we solve these problems. So do you feel okay about sort of letting some of those things go, or there's something you want to fold in?
The one is referring to this as the affordable housing.
I think we just decided we're not going to refer to it as that. That language will absolutely be changed.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm so grateful to you for raising the concerns that you have, and we're going to have to get on it and get a lot more information. And when I get more information, I will share more of it in the next packet. But so for sure, we're going to change to this single page, not referring to it as the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Are there other things we would want to change before we passed it on?
This is now, I think there are a few typos, so the last paragraph, application runs to be done in paragraph. And how many says row housing.
Thank you very much for that. Yep. Thank you so much for catching this.
Otherwise, I think it's the greatest meeting. And it's in January. Really.
Are there any other things that we would want to change in this? So this is a draft this group of recommendations that are being solicited by the subcommittee. It feels to me also like our committee has concerns about the work that the subcommittee is doing, right? So we'll worry about that next.
What did you mean by that? By pushing us to make decisions on things we hadn't really heard from the horse in the mouth.
I'm not going to say I meant that, but I do think that I can give some feedback that we feel uncomfortable with the information that we have at the time of the request that was made of us. Can I say it like that, Bev?
Yeah.
Okay. Shall we also ask for clarification on these points when we submit this set of recommendations?
By all means.
Great. Would that feel good? So it's aligning with the state, and it's the renaming. Are there any other things that we're gonna?
Aligning with the state, the implications of becoming
And okay.
legal.
And then the immediate rezoning question. Yeah, so I think that if we as a committee decide to submit this, it's going to go with the correspondence to the subcommittee saying we as a committee have these concerns. One of them is, I'm just doing that again. One of them is the renaming and specifically what it means to call it a trust fund. One of them is what seems like a move to align with this state fund, right? And the third is whether or not there's this immediate zoning that seems to suddenly be in the housing element as it was published today. So I would send those concerns that are concerns of this committee with our proposed recommendation.
And what it is to want state fund. That's the piece of it. We would like to see.
Yeah.
I think that, when we're going to take this again, because we go in July, I'm hearing more detailed information. There's a fair amount of competition for this right now. Programs in the housing, final housing. Fully,
Inclusionary fund.
to know what they are. When we do come back, it needs to make a very specific case for the. In other words, yeah, put it out there. Because otherwise, the alternative use is a little more compelling so that we don't make ours. So it's much more comfortable to come at that when we have this will hopefully go up. Within the state, the same.
Phrasing, the email that's going to go with this recommendation that we have so far, which is that we would appreciate an opportunity to continue to be part of the conversation as we get this information. Yeah.
Last July. Make it sort of succinct, that's what our position is. You know, public advocacy on the council. You wrote it. As chairman.
Would,
Unanimously, it's right, of course, it's building any housing. Our open spaces, including your. Is that,
shall we send that with this statement?
well. What do you think?
Yeah. It's part of the garage.
So along with this proposal, we will make sure that the subcommittee has our statement on Dorothy Ford Park from last summer. Again,
Raising whether it's going to be specific questions that we're going to respond to include zoning.
correct. Yeah, those are the three things that will be effectively asked. I'm sorry, Christy, you're not in my, you're out of my peripheral vision. Hi.
I'm just looking at the last paragraph and you say, if new zoning needs to take place in 2 years, which would be 24 months. The work of the, and then you mentioned 18 months. So, I don't know, that's a question, right?
Sure. Let me explain to you what our logic was there. That if the rezoning was going to be completed in 24 months, which is what our understanding was before today. In order legally for that to happen, it probably would need to be started in 18 months. So we were imagining it, we were trying to flag that even though our understanding was that it was 24 months, that probably would have to be figured out much sooner in order for that rezoning work that is legal and bureaucratic to actually go through. So that's what we were contemplating there. We could talk about whether that makes sense. Go ahead.
I think my understanding was that the sunrise, which was going to buy the 18 to 24 months, the sunrise on the rezoning. As it appears here in the policy 3, Page 135, if you're looking on time. That's the time. It says the time frame. January 26th. So, and the site planning process become initiated in May 2025. So the site planning process is not zoning might proceed. And so that's where it doesn't resemble.
Right.
Is this, I mean, the people of the town don't know that this document came out today.
It was sent out, a blast email from Eric Shen and weekly summary.
I think that the if in this paragraph probably provides us enough cover because it's not asserting that we know this is the timeline. And since in the cover email that's going with this statement, there's a question about the timeline, that probably covers us. Okay. So at this point, I think we're feeling good. I guess I'm gonna ask for a motion in a minute, but we're feeling good about sending this proposal with the questions and the statement from our committee from last summer, and not treating this as done, but as a beginning of the way that we weigh into this conversation and a beginning of getting more information about how we shall weigh it. Yeah, is that where we are?
Sounds like a motion.
Okay.
So are you saying you're turning in the whole 8 pages or page 1?
Page 1 without the terminology of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And it's going to go with these very specific questions to the subcommittee.
This is known and also the statement of the page in the council.
Correct, yes. So I'm not great at this. I think we have a motion. Do we need a second to the motion to vote? Thanks, Terry. All in favor?
Three items.
Yeah, in between me and no, we have it. We have them. Have I done what I need to do to call them? Okay, it seems like we have consensus.
Did you ask for public comment on Zoom? On Zoom?
I think it's just Dana.
There's a phone number.
I think that's Dana. I saw her a minute ago in the little box.
But we didn't call her.
You didn't.
I apologize. Can I retroactively call for public comment?
Yeah.
Is anyone on Zoom?
And we can vote again.
Dana, do you have a comment? Thank goodness this is a mistake that can be remedied. Dana,
Yes, I'm here. I have no comment. Do you hear me?
now we can.
Is my hand raised?
No,
Okay. I'm listening and I'm so appreciative. I gotta tell you, you guys are fabulous. I mean, just the stuff you're bringing up is wonderful. So I'm listening. It's hard to hear though. My goodness, we need to get this straightened out.
Agreed.
Thank you.
We're okay.
good.
That means that we vote.
Yay.
Well, I kind of do.
I think Gary ended up making the motion and Terry seconded it. I'm gonna get so much better at this as we go.
We don't need it.
All right,
Well, we
so
need better.
the microphones are challenged. Okay, well, I think that's all of our agendized items. I have notes for what the next agenda will look like. Do I ask for a motion to end the meeting?
So,
Betsy, do we have a second? Bev, thank you. Okay. I feel deep gratitude to this group. Thank you.
Are we keeping a timeline for the next meeting? Now, or?
Did we adjourn so I can turn this off, or should we let? I do not know when our next meeting should be, because it would be 2 months from our main meeting, or it would be 2 months from this meeting. So I would love to know what the committee would like.
Yeah. So it may depend on how much further comments are going to be.
I think that's right.
Yeah. One.
How about if I do some very brisk information gathering and reach out to the group and say, I think we need to meet real soon, or it seems like it's gonna take a beat to sort this out, and we can decide.
Yeah. Good.
Betsy,
should we get it?
what is that date?
6?
I think so.
All right,
Terry, is that a yes? Not sure.
We have a quorum.
we have a quorum, don't we? Although we would miss you, Terry, very much.
We will have. to-
We will. So I will be shortly in touch with the committee about the timing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, you guys.